You don't feel aftershocks while riding a bike. That's what Jane Pierce learned back in 2011. She was a PhD student working in Christchurch, New Zealand, when the big one hit. The earthquake hit Christchurch and destroyed huge parts of the city. She was downtown working at the time, and her first thought was that she needed to get in touch with her partner. But the phone networks were jammed, she couldn't get through, so she knew she had to get home. She went outside, and what she saw at that time she'll never forget. The ground was still heaving, buildings were collapsing, people were running around in chaos, and the streets were jammed with cars. Everyone had the same thought as her. Nobody was getting anywhere. Fortunately, Pierce was a bike commuter, so she got on her bike and was able to drive by all of this on her bike, make it home to meet her partner, who is also a bike commuter, and they made it home safely. I first heard this story from Pierce a few years ago when I interviewed her for a magazine story I was writing about the importance of bikes during times of disaster. Pierce had just written a paper about bikes as a tool of resilience, and it really struck home for me that she was right. I think bikes really are part of a resilient city. You know, over and over again when there's disasters or crises in cities, we hear these stories about how the bike emerges as an important tool. It happened in Christchurch, it happened in New York after Hurricane Sandy. And this has been on my mind a lot lately because here I am outside my back door, just like the rest of you, self-isolating in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic. But that interview I did with Pierce has been on my mind a lot lately because of this crisis. And also because I've had this experience before. Back in 2013, my city of Calgary underwent a huge flood and much of downtown was shut down. In fact, the whole city came to a standstill. But the only way that you could get around was on a bike. Now, I was working as a newspaper reporter at the time, so I was on my bike getting around downtown, and it was amazing how quickly and efficiently I got around when nobody else could. You know, even as I was reporting, people were messaging me on Twitter asking me to check on the state of their houses because they couldn't get there, but I could. So it really struck home for me that in a time of crisis, in a city, a bike can be a very useful tool. In some cities, such as New York, last week the officials asked people to start riding their bikes instead of taking the subways where it's crowded with people and virus can spread more. And it's interesting, I've also seen a few people sharing old newspaper ads and stories from the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, 1919, where bikes were also seen as a tool of resilience at that time. Here's one of them with a few interesting quotes. This one says, quote, "Very few of the people who've had influenza are regular cyclists." Now, I'm not sure about the science on that, but it's interesting. The ad also goes on to say that the clean, sweet air of the road is far healthier than the stuffy atmosphere inside the tram, the bus, or the train. I think we can probably all agree that's true. And then take a look at this one. It says, "As a precaution against the influenza, keep out of the crowds and ride your bike to and from work." So even back then, the bike was seen as something that was good for our health. People were riding their way through the influenza pandemic. And that does seem to be happening a bit in this situation as well. I mean, in my city, we're all self-isolating, we're doing social distancing, but so far that has not precluded going for bike rides. I've been on a couple of bike rides by myself and they're feeling better than ever. It's so nice to get outside and get some fresh air, get a bit of exercise. It's really good for my mental and physical health. So even in situations like this, the bike is coming in handy. So that's all I wanted to say. I mean, bikes are often overlooked in situations like this, and they are just a tiny part of a bigger picture of what a resilient city can be. This is a weird time for all of us. I'm not sure how important it is to be making bike vlogs at this time, but I hope we'll be back soon. Bikes are always going to be important. Listen to the medical professionals in your community. Stay safe, wash those hands, and we'll see you again soon.